Zarathustra's insight. Zarathustra acted in part as a protest against the excesses and deficiencies of his own culture. But this was secondary to the more important matter of his insight, Avestan Dana, which indicated that the true and only God was the principle of focused intelligence or pure wisdom, and that all other gods and goddesses such as were worthy of worship were in fact also abstract constructs or prototypes of certain ideas secondary to this single great prototype of intelligence. Zarathustra identified the deity with the compound name Ahura Mazda. This is a profound formula. The first word is usually translated as Lord. It is a word that is cognate to the Germanic Ansus, sovereign ancestral god. It is the word that becomes Os. In Old Norse and Sanskrit, it is Asura. The Indians tended to demonize the Asuras, just as the Iranians did the Devas. In any event, the word means something like a governor or holder or wielder with some authority or power, i.e. a lord. The second part of the formula is Mazda, which means wisdom or consciousness, the power of the mind to create and be active. The word Ahura is masculine and the word Mazda is feminine. This phrase, Ahura Mazda, is not to be understood as two distinct things, but one with the intrinsic aspects. It might be best translated Lord Wisdom. The relationship between two terms is very similar to the relationship between and seen in Tantric ideology between Shiva and Shakti. There, Shiva means Lord and Shakti means power. It is said Shakti is the power and Shiva is the power holder. The ramifications of all of this explain why the Zarathustrian deity is beyond designation as to gender. It is a combination of the masculine and feminine in the dyad. Ahura Mazda is beyond duality. As curious side note, the religious history of the 20th century, the well-known school Wicca could be said to have its deepest root in this theology. It is the root also of Tantrism and of Chinese Taoism. The essence of Zarathustra's insight was this, that the only true and real God is pure and focused consciousness, and that all the gods and goddesses of his people are but emanations of this God, and that all of them can be conceived of and understood as abstract principles of mentality. When other thinking men were exposed to this set of ideas, they were instantly transformed. They did not necessarily understand everything that Zarathustra understood, but they became somewhat better. Once this initial insight was absorbed, Zarathustra saw that the world was infected by a terrible disease called the lie. Every person at all times confronted with a choice between truth, Asha, and lie, Drudge. The truth is that man is good, strong, and immortal. The lie is that man is stupid, weak, and mortal. The good is that which supports and affirms the truth. The evil is that which supports and affirms the lie. The choice of understanding the truth is possible for all humans of all races and nationalities. Thus, the first transnational or intertribal religion was established. The insight of Zarathustra created the possibility of worldwide religion based on sovereign choice of the individual. At the present moment in history, if one were to investigate the religion known as Zoroastrianism, one would quickly find that, as a general rule, it does not accept converts to the faith. One must be born into the religion, much like Orthodox Judaism, which states that one's mother must be Jewish in order for one to be considered a Jew. So how and why did Zoroastrian message go from being one of universal appeal to one belonging only to an ethnic group? The answer to this is not really all that complicated. In the beginning of the Zarathustrian mission, the prophet tried to convert any and all to his new religion based on the insight that there is only one God, and that of focused consciousness, and that is the essence of goodness, which created good things. The God and the good creations are opposed to evil, which must be combated at every turn. Although Zarathustra gained his insight from within the pagan Aryan tradition of ancient Iran, a tradition which very much akin to the Rig Vedic India, He broadcast his message to the world in general. Zarathustra, as we know, probably lived in the middle of the second millennium BC, around 1700 through 1400 BCE, in the eastern part of the Iranian cultural sphere. This we know from the linguistic evidence based on the level of language used to compose the Gathas, hymns which Zarathustra himself composed, and which reflect the language of this time period. Over time, the religion spread among many of the Iranian tribes, but because it was against the tenets of their religion to use force or coercion to convert individuals, the spread of this faith was uneven and partial wherever it existed. To convert the Muslim way, one had to embrace it consciously, free from duress of any kind. But the main point here is that for the first time in history, individuals could actually choose the religion to which they belonged. Before this, as we have seen, people belonged to the religion they were born into, married into, or into which they were adopted or made blood brother. In archaic times, there was an identity between the ethnic and spiritual traditions. There was the Greek religion, Germanic religion, Japanese religion, etc. Zarathustra introduced the idea of individual conscious choice. With the advent of the Persian Empire in the middle of the first millennium BCE, between 550 and 330 BCE, more of the world became exposed to the teachings of the prophet. Archaeological evidence indicates that there were temples from China to the Caucasus. There is no indication of the restriction of Zoroastrianism to those born into the faith until, well, after the conquest of the Sasanian Empire by the Arabic Muslims between 633 and 651 CE. After that time, it was forbidden for Zoroastrians to proselytize or convert others to their faith because it was the ruthless mission of the Arabs to convert other peoples to Islam. It became a crime to convert to Zoroastrianism or to return to it after converting to Islam. Many in the remote areas of Iran remained loyal to the truth. Clearly, however, these prohibition meant that Zoroastrianism could only be followed by those who were born into it. Today, only about 150,000 Zoroastrians remain in Iran. As is well known, around 950 CE, a group of Zoroastrians migrated to the west coast of India. They entered into a Hindu world, which itself had been under constant threat of Islamic invasion. The local Hindus could only peacefully accept the Zoroastrian presence if they kept to themselves as regards marriage and religion. Therefore, again, the formerly universal religion of Zoroastrianism was restricted by historical circumstances. It had to give up expansion and articulating its message to outsiders in a direct way. These historical circumstances led Zoroastrians adopting a policy of non-conversion of outsiders. This is generally the situation that prevails in Orthodox Zoroastrian faith today. Western Muslims are not bothered by the situation. Zoroastrians have almost 4,000 years of cultural development attached to their culture, practices, and customs. For a European or American to convert to that religion would entail a complete re-enculturation of the individual, an impossible and undesirable event. Similarly, and for similar reasons, Orthodox Judaism does not accept converts. It is not only possible to its partial success would only lead to disintegration, degradation within the Orthodox cultures built over centuries of time. The Muslim way is a religion based on the insight and theology of Zarathustra, but one which is suited to the culture and customs of the West. In a way, Western Mazdaism is akin to return to the more basic, less refined early centuries of the development of the ideas of Zarathustra. We must find our own way to the truth with the aid of centuries of Zoroastrian tradition to help guide us, to be sure, but still discovering that it all means for us in our own authentic cultural experience. It is our position and our faith, and this development will be greeted as a positive sign of the pre-dawn of universal renewal. It is interesting to note that among the hundreds of traits, practices, and teachings adopted by Islam from Mazdaism, it is the doctrine that conversion to Islam must come as a matter of conscience and not force. The doctrine is founded on the Quranic verse which reads, "If it had been thy Lord's will, they would have all believed, all who are on the earth. Wilt thou often compel mankind against their will to believe?" Surah 1099. Of course, the fundamental difference lies in the fact that Muslims do not follow this teaching and practice and do not use tactics from the threat of death and the imposition of increased taxes. They are jizya on non-Muslims. Also, once one has chosen Islam, it is forbidden to make another choice later. This is the sin of apostasy, is often punished by death. Conversely, Zoroastrians really do practice the doctrine of non-coercion. The fact that coercion has worked so well historically is merely testimony to the power of Ahriman in the world today.